The Amazon rainforest is a living, breathing entity, often called the lungs of the world.
Its name whispers of mystery and untamed wilderness. Many have heard its call, promising wonders and challenges. For me, that call became impossible to ignore. This journey was about connecting with the raw power of nature, stepping into a world unchanged for millions of years. The decision was both thrilling and daunting, demanding respect and careful preparation. So I began to plan, studying maps and speaking to those who had ventured there before. It is the largest rainforest, home to unparalleled diversity. The thought of floating down its river filled me with anticipation. This was the start of a journey into the very soul of our planet. What captivates us about the Amazon? Perhaps its sheer scale. Spanning 9 countries, it's a world within a world. Parts remain unexplored, a powerful lure to the adventurer. The Amazon promises a journey back in time. Tales of lost cities and mythical creatures add to its mystery. It's a place where reality and myth blur. The Amazon represents life in its most spectacular form. Witness macaws streak across the sky, picture jaguars in the undergrowth, or pink river dolphins. The pull of the Amazon is its size, mysteries, and biodiversity. It challenges our perception and forces us to confront nature's power and beauty. Every great journey begins with a single step. A journey into the Amazon begins with the river, the lifeblood of the rainforest. My journey would be linked to this waterway, my highway through the jungle. Preparations were extensive, health and safety were paramount, vaccinations were necessary. I gathered a comprehensive medical kit. Clothing had to be carefully selected. Beyond the physical gear, there was the mental preparation. I would be immersed in a world governed by the rhythms of the sun and the sounds of the jungle. My vessel would be a traditional wooden riverboat. The boat would be my home, my vantage point, carrying me deeper into the jungle. As the departure date drew closer, the river loomed larger, the legendary River of Life. Explorers famously called the Amazon the Green Hell, a place of immense beauty and great danger. The air was thick, saturated with the smells of earth and blossoms. A wall of green and impenetrable curtain seemed endless. My first steps were tentative on the tangled ground. Sounds overwhelmed me, a cacophony of buzzing insects and echoing bird calls. The Amazon is home to countless creatures that can harm you. My guide moved with confidence, pointing out subtle tracks and medicinal plants. Survival here meant understanding and respecting the forest. Despite the challenges, the beauty was undeniable. This was the paradox of the Green Hell, a place of peril and profound wonder. Stepping into it was like stepping into another world entirely. The Amazon is an ancient place holding echoes of millions of years. Walking through the forest, you feel the weight of history. Giant trees have stood for centuries, witnesses to civilizations rising and falling. There's a deep energy here, a sense of timelessness. This ancient soul is carried by indigenous peoples, the true custodians. Their knowledge of the environment has been passed down through generations. Their presence reminds us that humans are part of this world, not separate from it. They see the forest as a living entity. The echoes of the ages are everywhere, in the wind, the water, and the trees. This journey was a pilgrimage to connect with something ancient and profound. The Amazon rainforest operates on its own rhythm, an intricate and complex beat that pulses with life. It is a symphony with millions of musicians, each playing their part in a grand, continuous performance. At first, the sounds of the jungle can feel like chaotic noise, an overwhelming wall of sound. But as you spend more time within it, you begin to tune in. You start to recognize the different instruments and melodies. You learn to distinguish the guttural roar of a howler monkey from the piercing shriek of a macaw. You notice the rhythmic chirping of crickets that signals the arrival of dusk and the chorus of frogs that celebrates the rain. This symphony is not just auditory, it is a full sensory experience. The rhythm is in the slow, deliberate unfurling of a giant water lily at dawn. It is in the frantic, shimmering dance of a hummingbird's wings as it sips nectar from a flower. It is in the patient, silent stalk of a predator and the panicked, fleeting escape of its prey. Life and death are the central themes of this composition, playing out in a constant cyclical drama. The forest is a place of immense beauty and startling cruelty, a world where every living thing is part of an interconnected web of survival. To be there is to witness the raw, unfiltered orchestra of nature. The daily rhythm of the forest is dictated by the sun and the rain. The morning begins with a soft, gentle awakening as the first rays of light penetrate the canopy, stirring the birds and primates into action. The midday heat brings a period of relative quiet. as many animals seek shelter and rest in the shade. The afternoon often brings rain, a sudden and dramatic downpour that washes the forest clean and replenishes its life force. Then, as darkness falls, a whole new cast of characters takes the stage. The nocturnal creatures emerge, and the symphony shifts into its mysterious and captivating nighttime movement. Preparing for this journey meant preparing to surrender to this rhythm. It meant leaving behind the artificial schedules of my own world and learning to live by the forest's clock. It meant waking with the sun, being mindful of the changing weather, and respecting the cycles of activity and rest. Tuning into the Amazon's heartbeat is a meditative experience. It requires you to be quiet, to be patient, and to be observant. It is about becoming less of a visitor and more of a participant, finding your own small place within the grand, breathtaking symphony of life that is the Amazon rainforest. This was honestly the ultimate goal of my endless journey. The moment of transition is one I will never forget. 1 minute I was in a small riverside town. The next I was stepping into the shade of the rainforest. It was like passing through a doorway into another dimension. The change was instantaneous. The bright sunlight was replaced by a soft dappled green light. The air became thick, heavy and fragrant. That initial step felt monumental. Ahead of me lay a world of chaotic, untamed growth. I paused for a moment, letting my senses adjust. The sheer verticality of the forest was staggering. Trees soared hundreds of feet above me, their massive trunks like pillars. My guide Marco turned to me. I could only nod, my own excitement mixed with humility. I was a guest here. It was this single step that marked the true beginning of the adventure. Everything I had read could not have prepared me for that moment. The Amazon was a living entity that you could feel all around you. I felt incredibly small. This was the threshold, and I had just crossed it. My journey into the heart of the Amazon had officially begun. After the initial visual shock, it was the sound that truly enveloped me. The air vibrated with a million different voices, all competing for attention. The most dominant sound was the incessant, high-pitched hum of insects. They were loud, exotic, and often bizarre. A sudden rustle in the leaves nearby would make my heart leap. A branch would creak and snap high above, likely a troop of monkeys on the move. The jungle was never ever silent. He could identify dozens of calls, telling me which bird was singing or which frog was calling for rain. I was slowly learning to tune in and to appreciate the jungle's deafening, beautiful, and wild welcome. Before this journey, I thought I understood the color green. It was the color of grass, of leaves, of traffic lights. But in the Amazon, I realized I knew nothing. The rainforest presented me with a world painted in an infinite palette of green, a spectrum of shades so vast and nuanced that my vocabulary failed me. It was a world utterly saturated with green. This overwhelming green created a unique visual experience. Everywhere I looked, from the forest floor to the canopy ceiling, the world was a tapestry of foliage. The light played a crucial role in this world of green. The dense canopy acted as a giant filter, allowing only scattered beams of sunlight to reach the forest floor. Being surrounded by so much of one color had a strange psychological effect. At times, it was incredibly soothing, a calming immersion in the color of life itself. I was just beginning to appreciate the complexity and power contained within that single, overwhelming color. The first thing you notice in the Amazon is the heat, but the thing that stays with you is the humidity. It is a constant, suffocating presence. Within minutes of stepping into the forest, a thin layer of sweat covered my entire body. This was a wet, oppressive heat that sapped your energy. This humidity is the engine of the rainforest. The Amazon creates its own weather system, a cycle of moisture that rises, forms clouds, and falls back down as rain, nourishing the very forest that produced it. I was walking through the very life force of the ecosystem. The people who lived here moved with an easy grace, perfectly adapted to the conditions. It forced a connection with the environment that was undeniable. It was a powerful lesson in adaptation. While I dreamt of jaguars and giant anacondas, my first encounters with the Amazon's wildlife were on a much smaller but no less wondrous scale. The forest floor was teeming with life. Marco, my guide, had an incredible eye for spotting things. He would point out a perfectly camouflaged praying mantis. One memorable encounter was with leafcutter ants. We saw a long, busy trail of them. Each ant carried a piece of a green leaf. They carry leaves to their underground nest to cultivate a fungus, their food source. The Amazon is famous for its poison dart frogs. Seeing one for the first time was a highlight. It was tiny, but its color was shockingly vibrant. These small encounters taught me to appreciate the Amazon. The true magic often lies in the details. The forest floor was a microcosm of the entire rainforest. I learned to walk more slowly and look more closely. Even the smallest creatures played a crucial part in the web of life. After trekking through the dense forest, we reached the river bank where our sturdy wooden riverboat, painted blue and white, was waiting. Named Esperanza, meaning hope. It would be our lifeline into the Amazon. The river, a world unto itself, reflected the towering trees and dramatic sky. From the boat, we saw the unbroken wall of vegetation lining the banks. The river was our highway, allowing us to cover vast distances. We spent hours watching the changing scenery. We saw local fishermen and villages, the river a center of life. We watched for river dolphins. Our boat, a tiny vessel, was carried by the river's current. Being deep within the Amazon rainforest completely changes your relationship with the sky. On most days, you do not see it at all. The canopy is so thick that it forms a ceiling of leaves high above. Occasionally, a gap in the canopy would appear where an old giant tree had fallen. Suddenly, you would be bathed in direct, unfiltered sunlight, and you could look up and see a patch of brilliant blue sky. This unique perspective on the sky also meant that the weather revealed itself in different ways. You couldn't see storm clouds gathering. Then, the first heavy drops of rain would begin to fall, spattering loudly on the broad leaves around you. Living under the canopy gave me a new appreciation for light. The sky was no longer a vast, ever-present backdrop. It had become a precious commodity. If the Amazon is a symphony during the day, at night it becomes a completely different orchestra. The transition is swift. The sun sets, and within minutes, the forest is plunged into darkness. As the light fades, the sound swells. The daytime creatures fall silent, and a new cast takes the stage. The air fills with the chorus of frogs. It felt like the forest had a secret life that it only revealed after dark. Marco pointed out things we never would have seen in the daylight, like a sleeping bird and bioluminescent fungi. The forest was just as alive at night. I grew to love the jungle's nighttime orchestra. The jungle had two distinct personalities, and to truly understand it, you had to experience both. Venturing deeper, our exploration shifted to understanding the forest's intricate systems. Marco revealed the Amazon's role as a vast living pharmacy. For every ailment, the forest provides a potential remedy, a sophisticated system of traditional medicine. He showed us sangre de drago, or dragon's blood, used as a liquid bandage with antiseptic and anti-inflammatory properties. The examples were endless. The forest was a living library of chemical compounds, a biological treasure trove. This living pharmacy is a testament to the intimate relationship between indigenous people and their environment. This transformed my perception of the jungle. It was a carefully organized, infinitely complex system of life. The Amazon, a world where the line between predator and prey is sharply drawn. They are the silent predators, masters of camouflage and patience. Seeing them requires a trained eye and luck. The ultimate prize is the jaguar. We never saw one, a testament to its stealth. Marco pointed out a fresh paw print, so large it sent a shiver down my spine. I was not at the top of the food chain, but a clumsy, loud visitor in a kingdom ruled by silent, deadly sovereigns. While many of the Amazon's creatures are masters of hiding, the birds are often the complete opposite. They are the flamboyant, noisy, and dazzling jewels of the rainforest, painting the green canopy with shocking bursts of color. My first sight of a flock of scarlet macaws in flight is a memory that is burned into my mind. They flew over the river in a blaze of red, yellow, and blue, their loud raucous calls echoing across the water. They were like flying rainbows, so impossibly vibrant against the deep green backdrop that they seemed to belong to another, more fantastical world. They were a living, breathing celebration of color, a stark contrast to the camouflaged world of the forest floor. The diversity of bird life was simply staggering. Every day brought new and spectacular sightings. We saw toucans with their enormous, comical, and brilliantly colored beaks, which Marco explained were surprisingly lightweight and used for reaching fruit on thin branches. We watched iridescent hummingbirds, tiny metallic sprites, hovering in mid-air with wings beating so fast they were just a blur. Their colors would shift and shimmer in the sunlight, from emerald green to fiery ruby. These tiny birds were bundles of furious energy, darting from flower to flower, playing their crucial role as pollinators in the forest's intricate web of life. The symphony of bird calls was as diverse as their plumage. Each morning, we were awakened by the dawn chorus, a complex and beautiful orchestra that began long before the sun's rays pierced the canopy. The most bizarre and unforgettable sound was the call of the screaming piha, a surprisingly small, dull-colored bird that produces an ear-splittingly loud three-note whistle that can be heard from over half a mile away. Then there was the deep, resonant booming of the musician wren, whose song is considered one of the most beautiful and musical in the entire animal kingdom. The air was constantly filled with their calls, a complex language of territory, warning, and courtship. Observing these avian jewels required patience and a good pair of binoculars. They often lived high in the canopy, flitting through the treetops far above our heads. We would spend hours in the clearings, craning our necks to catch a glimpse of a rare cotinga or a majestic harpy eagle, one of the world's most powerful birds of prey. These birds are more than just beautiful ornaments. They are vital indicators of the forest's health. Their presence signifies a thriving, balanced ecosystem. They are the living, flying, and singing soul of the rainforest, a constant and breathtaking reminder of the incredible biodiversity that this magical place holds. In the Amazon, it is easy to be overwhelmed by the scale of the trees and the width of the river. But the true rulers of this kingdom are the small. The insects, in their trillions, form the foundation of the entire ecosystem. They are the great decomposers, pollinators, and a primary food source for countless other animals. To ignore them is to miss the most intricate and fascinating layer of rainforest life. Their world is one of miniature marvels, where evolution has produced an astonishing array of forms, colors, and behaviors. They are the architects, artists, and engineers of the jungle, their tiny actions shaping the entire landscape in profound ways. The architects were perhaps the most obvious. We saw colossal termite mounds, some taller than a person, built from soil and saliva. These structures are not just simple heaps of dirt. They are complex, climate-controlled cities with intricate networks of tunnels and ventilation shafts that maintain a constant temperature and humidity inside. They are a testament to the power of collective effort and instinctive engineering. Similarly, the perfectly spherical nests of certain wasp species, hanging like papery lanterns from branches, were marvels of natural architecture, built with a precision that would be the envy of any human builder. Then there were the artists. The butterflies of the Amazon are legendary, and for good reason. We saw the famous blue morpho, a large butterfly whose wings are a brilliant iridescent blue. It would flutter erratically through the dappled sunlight, and the flashing of its wings was like a piece of the sky had fallen and taken flight. Yet the tops of its wings are this brilliant blue, while the undersides are a dull brown with large eye spots to startle predators. We also saw glasswing butterflies whose wings were almost completely transparent, allowing them to blend in perfectly with any background. They were like tiny flying panes of stained glass, nature's delicate and ephemeral works of art. The sheer diversity was mind-boggling. There were beetles that looked like polished jewels, stick insects that were indistinguishable from twigs, and ants of every size and description, each with a specific role in the forest's function. While some, like the mosquitoes, were a constant annoyance, my respect for the insect world grew immensely. They are the engine of the rainforest, the tireless workers who perform the essential tasks that allow the entire system to function. This world of the small was a powerful reminder that in nature, size is no measure of importance. The mightiest tree depends on the tiniest insect for its survival. The river was not just our highway. It was a teeming, mysterious world of its own, home to creatures as strange and wonderful as any on land. While the forest canopy had its avian jewels, the murky brown waters concealed their own giants. From the deck of our boat, we peered into the depths, hoping for a glimpse of the life that pulsed beneath the surface. Our first truly breathtaking encounter was with a pod of pink river dolphins, or botos as they are known locally. They are mythical creatures, their pale pink skin an almost unbelievable sight in the muddy water. They surfaced around our boat with gentle grace, their strange elongated beaks and small eyes giving them a prehistoric appearance. The river dolphins were not the only giants. The Amazon is home to the arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world, capable of growing over 10 feet long and weighing hundreds of pounds. They are air breathers, and every so often we would hear a deep coughing sound and see a massive armored body roll on the surface to gulp air before disappearing back into the depths. We also kept a watchful eye on the riverbanks for the black caiman, an alligator relative that can reach lengths of up to 15 feet. We saw several of them, basking motionlessly on muddy shores, looking like ancient armored logs. Their stillness was unnerving, a silent display of predatory power. One afternoon, as we fished for our dinner from the side of the boat, we had a more intimate encounter with the river's famous resident piranhas. The image of a flesh-stripping frenzy is largely a myth, but they are formidable creatures. The piranhas we caught were beautiful, their silvery flat bodies shimmering with flecks of red and gold. They had powerful jaws and a set of razor-sharp interlocking teeth that commanded respect. Marco showed us how to handle them carefully, pointing out the impressive dental hardware. They were a crucial part of the river's ecosystem, a cleanup crew that scavenges and keeps the waters clean. The river's depths also held the legendary anaconda, the world's heaviest snake. While we were not fortunate or perhaps unfortunate enough to see one, its presence loomed large in our imaginations. The river felt like a place of ancient secrets, a murky, mysterious realm where giants still roamed. Floating on its surface, you couldn't help but feel a sense of profound awe for the life it supported. The river was the forest's circulatory system, and its inhabitants were the powerful cells flowing through its veins, from the gentle pink dolphins to the fearsome caimans, each a vital part of the Amazon's aquatic heart. As dust settled over the rainforest each evening, a new orchestra would begin its performance. This was the Symphony of the Frogs, a chorus so loud and pervasive that it became the defining sound of the Amazonian night. The sheer volume and variety of their calls were astounding. It was a rich tapestry of sound, woven from 1,000 different croaks, chirps, whistles and trills. Some calls were deep and resonant, like a bass drum, while others were high-pitched and melodic, like a flute. This nightly concert was not just random noise, it was the vibrant, amphibious heartbeat of the forest, a declaration of life that pulsed through the darkness. During our night walks with Marco, we sought out the musicians responsible for this incredible symphony. Armed with headlamps, we would carefully approach streams and pools of standing water, the epicenters of amphibian activity. It was a magical experience. Our headlamp beams would catch on the wet, glistening skin of countless frogs. We saw tiny tree frogs with their long limbs and sticky toe pads clinging to leaves high above the water. We saw huge cane toads, warty and formidable, sitting impassively on the muddy banks. Each species had its own unique appearance and its own distinct voice in the nocturnal choir. One of the most memorable finds was the red-eyed tree frog. Its body was a brilliant lime green, but when it moved, it flashed startling patches of blue and yellow on its sides, and its eyes were a shocking, vibrant red. These colors, Marco explained, were a defense mechanism called startle coloration, designed to momentarily stun a predator and give the frog a chance to escape. We also found glass frogs, whose ventral skin is translucent. By holding one carefully in his hand, Marco showed us how we could see its tiny heart beating and its internal organs at work. It was an incredible, intimate look at the inner workings of life. Frogs are more than just noisy neighbors. They are a critical barometer of environmental health. Their permeable skin makes them extremely sensitive to pollution and changes in the environment. A loud, diverse frog chorus is a sign of a healthy, thriving ecosystem. As I lay in my hammock each night, listening to their unceasing symphony, I felt a sense of reassurance. The forest was alive and well. The constant rhythmic pulse of their calls was a lullaby from the ancient heart of the Amazon, a powerful and beautiful reminder of the incredible resilience and vibrancy of life in this wet, wonderful world. In the beginning, the trees of the Amazon felt like an overwhelming monolithic wall of green. They were the stage upon which the drama of animal life unfolded. But as I spent more time in the forest, I began to see them not as scenery, but as individual characters, each with its own story, its own strategies for survival, and its own secret life. The sheer diversity was astonishing. Marco could identify dozens of species at a glance, pointing out the smooth, pale bark of the rubber tree, the spiny trunk of the kapok, and the massive buttressed roots of the ceiba, which can grow to be one of the largest trees in the entire rainforest. I learned that the trees are engaged in a constant, slow-motion battle for life's most precious resource, light. They soar hundreds of feet into the air, their branches spreading wide to form the canopy, each one vying for its share of the sun. But their competition is not just vertical. They communicate and interact in ways we are only just beginning to understand. Marco explained how some trees release chemical signals into the air to warn neighboring trees of insect attacks. prompting them to produce defensive toxins in their leaves. The forest floor, he said, is laced with a vast underground network of fungi that connects the roots of different trees, allowing them to share nutrients and information. The trees were also entire ecosystems in themselves. Their branches were gardens, hosting a stunning variety of epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, such as vibrant orchids, feathery ferns, and colorful bromeliads. These bromeliads often collect pools of water in their central cups, creating miniature aquatic habitats for frogs, insects, and other tiny creatures hundreds of feet above the ground. The trees provided homes, highways, and hunting grounds for countless species. A single large tree could be a vertical world, supporting a community of life as complex as any on the forest floor. The trees were not just part of the ecosystem, they were the ecosystem. My perspective shifted completely. I was no longer just walking through a forest. I was walking among giants. Each one was a living monument, a testament to resilience and strength. Some of the trees we saw were centuries old, silent witnesses to history. I would often just stand and place my hand on the rough bark of an ancient tree, trying to feel its energy, its ancient wisdom. They were the pillars that held up this entire world, the silent, breathing, and deeply connected beings that defined the very essence of the Amazon. They were not just scenery, they were the wise old souls of the jungle. Much of the Amazon's wildlife is shy, nocturnal, or simply too well camouflaged to be seen easily. To truly understand the richness of life around us, we had to learn a new way of seeing. We had to learn the art of reading the forest's secret language, a language written in tracks, trails, and subtle signs. For Marco, the muddy banks of a stream or a patch of soft earth on the trail were like a newspaper, telling him exactly who had passed by, where they were going, and what they were doing. He taught me to look down, to pay attention to the ground beneath my feet, and to see the stories it held. Each track was a signature, a fleeting piece of evidence that brought the unseen animals to life in my imagination. The forest began to feel much more crowded, populated by the ghosts of the creatures whose signs were everywhere. Learning to read these signs was like being given a key to unlock a hidden dimension of the rainforest. I was learning to see the unseen, and the jungle felt more alive and mysterious than ever. High above the forest floor, in the sun-drenched world of the canopy, exists another society. This is the primate realm, a dynamic and noisy world of monkeys who spend their lives swinging, climbing, and leaping through the treetops. Their presence was often announced long before they were seen. A sudden crashing of branches, a shower of falling leaves and fruit, and a chorus of excited calls would signal that a troop was on the move. Catching a glimpse of them required quick reflexes and a bit of luck as they moved with incredible speed and agility through the dense foliage, their treetop home providing both sustenance and a complex three-dimensional highway. We were lucky enough to encounter several different species, each with its own unique character and social structure. The most vocal were the howler monkeys. We would often hear their deep, guttural roars at dawn, a sound so powerful and resonant it felt like it was coming from a much larger predator, like a jaguar. This incredible roar, one of the loudest sounds in the animal kingdom, is used to mark their territory, a way of communicating with other troops without resorting to physical conflict. Seeing them, dark and shaggy, sitting high on a branch and letting out their thunderous calls was an unforgettable experience of the forest's raw power. In contrast to the booming howlers, the squirrel monkeys were small, nervous, and incredibly active. They traveled in large, boisterous troops, a whirlwind of energy moving through the mid-canopy. Their bright, intelligent faces and constant chattering communication made them fascinating to watch. They would leap incredible distances from branch to branch, their long tails acting as a balancing pole. We also saw troops of capuchin monkeys, known for their intelligence and their use of tools. Marco pointed out how they would skillfully use rocks to crack open hard nuts, a behavior that demonstrates their complex cognitive abilities. Watching these primate societies was like looking into a distant reflection of our own. Their complex social interactions, their family bonds, their disputes, and their moments of play were all fascinatingly familiar. They are a vital part of the rainforest, acting as key seed dispersers. By eating fruit in one location and depositing the seeds elsewhere, they effectively act as the forest's gardeners, helping to regenerate and spread the very trees they depend on. The primate realm was a vibrant, intelligent, and chaotic society high above our heads, a constant and lively reminder of our own close connection to the wild heart of the Amazon. My journey had been an intimate conversation with nature. But there was a crucial part of the Amazon story I had only glimpsed, the human story. The Amazon has been home to people for millennia. I yearned to connect with the people who call this place home. I wanted to approach these encounters with humility and respect. I wanted to listen more than I spoke and to learn from a different worldview. Marco explained that visiting a community was a delicate matter, built on trust. I was being granted a privilege, an opportunity to step into a world that is often misunderstood. As our boat chugged along the river, my anticipation grew. It was now a home, a pantry, a pharmacy, and a cathedral for people. My journey into the Amazon's heart was about to take its most important turn. The endless journey was leading me to the human soul of the rainforest. After hours on the river, Marco pointed to a break in the vegetation. A small path led up from a makeshift wooden dock. As our boat nudged against the shore, the sounds of the village reached us. We heard the happy shouts of children playing, the rhythmic thud of someone pounding grain, and the gentle murmur of conversation. We had arrived at the home of one of the forest's communities. The forest opened, and the village revealed itself. Simple wooden houses with thatched roofs. The people were kind and curious. An elder greeted Marco warmly. This first glimpse was powerful. This was a living, breathing community, functional and resilient, deeply rooted in the forest. I stood at the edge of the clearing, feeling like I had just stepped into a place of profound peace. The village greeted us with curiosity and warmth, especially the children, whose laughter quickly bridged any language gap. Marco, translated as the elder, Apurina, welcomed us into the communal hut, offering a refreshing local drink. We exchanged stories. He spoke of the forest's rhythms and ancestral wisdom, his gestures painting vivid pictures. I described my distant urban world, realizing how foreign it sounded here. Their wealth was in knowledge, family, and their deep connection to nature. We were welcomed not as outsiders, but as guests invited to see life through their eyes. Their hospitality was a gift, a reminder of the richness found in community and tradition. Each day revealed the villagers' mastery of the forest, turning plants and wood into tools, baskets, and homes. I watched the woman weave a basket, her hands swift and sure, the patterns telling ancient stories. Men repaired thatched roofs with vines and palm leaves, their teamwork effortless and precise. Children crafted toys from seeds, while others carved blowguns and paddles with skill passed down through generations. Nothing was wasted. Every object reflected respect for nature and ingenuity. Their craftsmanship was survival, art, and heritage intertwined. I left humbled, inspired by their sustainable, creative way of life. At night, the village gathered by firelight, the jungle's sounds mingling with the elder Apurina's stories. He spoke of creation, spirits, and mythical creatures, tales that taught respect for the forest's mysteries. The line between the physical and spiritual was thin. Animals spoke, the forest lived. These stories weren't just entertainment, they were lessons, guiding how to live in harmony with nature. Under the stars, the legends felt real, binding the community together. Oral tradition kept their history and values alive. The firelight stories revealed the soul of the Amazon. Sharing meals deepened my bond with the community, each dish a lesson in resourcefulness and tradition. Manioc was the staple, harvested, processed, and transformed into bread and porridge through hard work. The river provided fish, grilled or steamed with wild herbs and peppers, bursting with flavor. We tasted exotic fruits and even roasted grubs, each bite a new experience. Meals were communal, eaten by hand and filled with gratitude. Food here was a celebration of nature's gifts and the people's ingenuity. Every meal told a story of resilience and connection to the land. The shaman Kada was the village's spiritual guide, a bridge between the seen and unseen worlds. He used sacred plants like ayahuasca, not for escape but for healing and insight. His rituals restored balance, blending medicine, spirituality, and ecology. Kada's wisdom wove together the health of people, community, and forest. Through him, I glimpsed a worldview where everything is connected. The shaman's role was vital, guardian of tradition and harmony. He embodied the ancient heart of the Amazon. As my visit ended, I saw the village's resilience amid growing threats, deforestation, climate change, and outside pressures. Elder Apurina spoke of shifting seasons and encroaching loggers, challenges that threatened their way of life. Yet the community adapted, blending tradition with new skills, sending children to school, and finding sustainable ways to protect their land. They were not victims, but determined guardians of their future. Leaving was bittersweet. I carried their wisdom and their struggle with me. Their fight for the forest is a fight for us all. Their spirit and connection to the land offer hope for the Amazon's future. After a heartfelt farewell, my journey took a somber turn. We left the pristine wilderness behind, traveling towards the edge of the Amazon basin. The landscape changed, becoming shockingly abrupt. Barren, reddish-brown earth replaced the dense green. Seeing the deforestation firsthand was a gut-wrenching experience. It was like a raw, open sore on the planet. The scale of destruction was difficult to comprehend. The idyllic jungle was gone, replaced by utter devastation. Giant trees were now just splintered stumps. The air smelled of diesel fumes and smoke. The vibrant jungle symphony had been replaced by an eerie quiet. The sense of loss was overwhelming. It was the annihilation of an entire world, a brutal testament to the relentless demand for resources, a silent monument to what we stand to lose if this assault on the Amazon continues. As we moved, the silence was broken by a low mechanical roar. It was the sound of chainsaws, a constant, menacing presence. Each roar signaled the death of another tree. Its life of centuries ended in minutes. This sound represented the clearing of land and harvesting of timber. For some, it's the sound of economic opportunity. Yet, for the forest, this roar was a death knell. They moved with purpose, felling giant trees with terrifying speed. A tree that had been a vertical ecosystem was reduced to a lifeless log. It was the sound of the industrial world imposing its will upon the natural world. It was the sound of a clock ticking, a countdown to a future where the symphony of the Amazon could be replaced by the destructive roar of machinery. The visible scars of deforestation were horrifying, but Marco revealed that some of the greatest threats to the Amazon were invisible, flowing silently in the very water that gave the region life. As we navigated a tributary in an area known for illegal gold mining, the water itself looked different. It had a sickly, milky sheen, and the vibrant green life that usually crowded the banks seemed sparser and less healthy. Marco warned me not to touch the water here. He explained that the miners use vast quantities of mercury to separate gold particles from the river sediment, and much of this toxic heavy metal was then washed directly back into the river system. This unseen poison was a silent and insidious killer. The mercury enters the aquatic food chain. Starting with the smallest organisms, it then becomes more and more concentrated as it moves up the chain, from small fish to larger predatory fish, and eventually to the caimans, river otters, and people who eat them. The effects are devastating. In humans, mercury poisoning can cause severe neurological damage, birth defects, and a host of other debilitating health problems. The indigenous communities downstream from these mining operations, who rely on the river for their drinking water and food, are the primary victims of this toxic legacy. We saw the evidence of this perilous industry firsthand. From our boat, we could see makeshift mining operations on the riverbanks. High-pressure hoses blasted away at the earth, turning the banks into a muddy, eroded wasteland. Men worked in the murky water, operating dredging equipment that sucked up the riverbed. It was a chaotic and unregulated scene, a stark contrast to the harmonious life we had witnessed in the village. These miners were often poor people from outside the region, desperate for work and unaware or unconcerned about the long-term environmental consequences of their actions. They were poisoning the very river that sustained them. The river, which I had come to see as a source of life and a path of hope, was here a vector of disease and death. The clear life-giving pulse of the Amazon was being clogged with the toxic byproducts of human greed. This invisible threat felt even more treacherous than the chainsaws. A felled tree is a visible loss, but a poisoned river represents a systemic corruption of the entire ecosystem, a contamination that can persist for generations, affecting every living thing it touches. The peril facing the river was a chilling reminder that the wounds inflicted on the Amazon are not always visible on the surface. Beyond the immediate, localized threats of chainsaws and mercury, Marco spoke of a larger, more pervasive danger, one that respects no borders and cannot be seen at all. This is the threat of climate change, the fever of the earth that is beginning to manifest even in the vast, seemingly eternal heart of the Amazon. The indigenous communities, with their deep generational knowledge of the natural cycles, are often the first to notice the subtle but significant changes. Apurina, the elder in the village, had spoken of it. The rains coming at the wrong time, the dry seasons lasting longer and being more intense, the river flooding with an unpredictable fury. These changes are a direct consequence of a warming planet, but they also create a dangerous feedback loop. The Amazon itself plays a crucial role in regulating the global climate. Its billions of trees absorb vast amounts of carbon dioxide, and it creates its own weather, influencing rainfall patterns across the entire continent. As the forest is cut down and burned, that stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere, accelerating global warming. At the same time, the rising temperatures and prolonged droughts make the remaining forest more susceptible to fire, creating a vicious cycle of destruction. We witnessed the potential for this firsthand. We traveled through an area that had suffered a major forest fire during an unusually long dry season a few years prior. The landscape was skeletal. The blackened, ghostly trunks of dead trees stood like tombstones against the sky. The normally lush green undergrowth was gone, replaced by a sparse, scraggly covering of opportunistic weeds. The forest was struggling to recover, but Marco explained that these increasingly frequent and intense fires could eventually push large parts of the Amazon past a tipping point, transforming the lush rainforest into a drier, savanna-like ecosystem, a change that would be irreversible. This concept of a tipping point was terrifying. It meant that the Amazon, this great lung of the planet, could begin to exhale more carbon than it inhales, transforming from a climate solution into a climate problem. The fever of the earth was not just an external threat, it was weakening the rainforest from within, compromising its incredible resilience. The changes the elders were witnessing were not just local weather anomalies, they were the early symptoms of a planetary illness, a sickness that we are all contributing to, and one that threatens the very existence of this vital global ecosystem. The Amazon was sick, and its fever was a warning to us all. With every hectare of forest that is burned or cut down, with every river that is poisoned, we lose more than just trees and water. We lose the irreplaceable biodiversity that makes the Amazon so extraordinary. This part of the journey was filled with a profound sense of melancholy as I began to understand the sheer fragility of the life I had so recently marveled at. Each species in the rainforest is a unique, unrepeatable product of millions of years of evolution, and each one is perfectly adapted to its specific niche. When their habitat disappears, they disappear with it forever. The vibrant symphony of life begins to fade, one note at a time. Marco spoke about the animals that were becoming harder and harder to find. The majestic jaguar, which needs a vast territory to hunt, is being squeezed into smaller and smaller pockets of intact forest. The giant river otters, sensitive to water pollution, are vanishing from contaminated rivers. Even seemingly common species, like certain types of frogs and insects, are facing extinction as their specific host plants or breeding grounds are destroyed. Extinction is a silent process. There is no grand announcement, just a gradual fading away until one day the last individual of a species dies, and a voice in the cosmic chorus is silenced for all time. We visited a small privately run animal rescue center on the edge of the forest, a place that was both hopeful and heartbreaking. It was filled with animals that were victims of habitat loss and the illegal pet trade. We saw orphaned baby monkeys whose mothers had been killed for bushmeat, and beautiful macaws with broken wings that could never fly again. The dedicated people running the center were doing their best to heal these animals and, where possible, release them back into protected areas. But they admitted it was like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. For every animal they saved, thousands more were perishing. This experience brought the concept of extinction from an abstract idea to an emotional reality. Looking into the eyes of a rescued ocelot, a beautiful wild cat that had been found injured on the side of a newly built road, I felt a deep sense of our collective responsibility. These creatures were not just statistics in a scientific report. They were living, feeling beings whose right to exist was being erased by our actions. The whispers of extinction were growing louder in the Amazon, a tragic and urgent reminder of the immense and irreversible loss that occurs when we fail to protect the delicate, fragile web of life. The fight to protect the Amazon is not just about saving trees and animals. It is also a dangerous and often deadly human struggle. The true guardians of the rainforest, the indigenous peoples and the environmental activists who stand with them, are on the front lines, and they pay an incredibly high price for their courage. As we traveled, Marco shared stories of communities who have successfully fought to protect their ancestral lands from loggers and miners, but he also spoke of the immense risks they face. These activists are often threatened, intimidated, and even assassinated for daring to stand in the way of powerful economic interests. This human cost is a part of the Amazon story that is rarely told. It is a story of incredible bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. These guardians are not just fighting for their own homes and cultures, they are fighting for the health of the entire planet. They are protecting the forests that regulate our climate and harbor a significant portion of the world's biodiversity. Yet, they are often left to fight this battle alone, with little protection from their own governments. Their struggle is a stark reminder that environmental justice and human rights are inextricably linked. You cannot protect the forest without protecting the people who call it home. We met one such activist, a man from a local community who had been working to document illegal logging activities in a nearby protected area. He spoke to us cautiously, his eyes constantly scanning his surroundings. He showed us photographs and GPS coordinates he had collected, evidence he planned to take to the authorities. He knew the risks. His predecessor had been murdered a few years earlier. When I asked him why he continued, his answer was simple and profound. "This forest is my mother," he said through Marco's translation. "If someone was attacking your mother, would you not try to stop them, no matter the cost?" His words stayed with me, a testament to the deep spiritual connection that fuels this dangerous work. The burden these guardians carry is immense. They are fighting a war with sticks and stones, or more accurately, with legal petitions and peaceful protests, against the bulldozers and guns of their opponents. Their resilience is both inspiring and deeply troubling. It is a burden that should be shared by all of us, by a global community that benefits from the sacrifices being made in these remote corners of the world. The human cost of conservation is a debt that the world owes to these brave and tireless defenders of our shared natural heritage. My journey through the Amazon was drawing to a close. I had experienced its breathtaking beauty, its profound wisdom, and now its deep and painful wounds. I had started my adventure by tuning into the jungle's vibrant symphony, but now I could hear the discordant notes, the missing instruments, and the encroaching silence. The symphony is fading. The roar of the howler monkey is being replaced by the roar of the chainsaw. The chorus of the frogs is being quieted by the poison in the water. The rustle of the unseen jaguar is being silenced as its home disappears. The rich, complex music of life is being simplified and diminished with every passing day. This fading symphony is an urgent call to action. It is a desperate plea from the heart of our planet, a warning that we are on the verge of losing something truly irreplaceable. The threats facing the Amazon, deforestation, climate change, pollution, are not insurmountable, but they require immediate and decisive action on a global scale. It requires us to change the way we consume, the policies our governments enact, and the economic systems that prioritize short-term profit over long-term survival. It requires us to see the Amazon not as a collection of resources to be exploited, but as a vital living system that we are a part of and depend upon. The solutions are as complex as the problem. They involve supporting the indigenous communities who are the forest's best guardians, promoting sustainable agriculture, combating illegal mining and logging, and investing in conservation and reforestation efforts. But most of all, it requires a fundamental shift in our perspective. It requires us to listen. We must listen to the scientists who are warning us about the tipping points. We must listen to the activists who are risking their lives to protect this precious wilderness. And we must listen to the forest itself, to the whispers of its ancient trees and the fading calls of its creatures. Leaving the Amazon, I carried with me not just memories of its beauty, but a heavy sense of responsibility. The journey was endless, not just in its physical scope, but in the ongoing story of its struggle. The symphony is not yet silent. There are still vast, vibrant, and thriving areas of this incredible rainforest. There is still time to act, to protect what remains, and to help heal the wounds we have inflicted. But we must listen to its fading music now, before the silence becomes permanent. The fate of the Amazon, and in many ways our own fate, depends on our willingness to hear its call and respond with the urgency and respect it deserves. Returning from the Amazon is not like coming home from any other place. The transition is a shock to the system. I find that it has not left me. I carry the Amazon within me now, a living presence that has reshaped my perception of the world. The Amazon has instilled in me a deeper understanding of interconnectedness. The journey revealed the intricate threads that connect everything. The echo of the forest is also an echo of its people. Their stories are now a part of my own story. Their voices are the most important part of the echo I carry with me, a constant call to remember and to act. Reflecting on my journey is like looking at a complex tapestry, woven with threads of hope and sorrow. The sorrow comes from the scars of deforestation, poisoned rivers, and whispers of extinction. These images are seared into my memory. This sorrow is deepened by the human cost to indigenous communities, yet shining brightly is an undeniable and powerful hope. Hope is in the resilience of the forest itself. It is in the vibrant flash of a macaw's wing, and most of all, the hope is in its people. Their resilience is the most potent antidote to despair. This journey ends with a complex duality: acknowledge the sorrow, but hold on to hope. Facing immense problems like the Amazon's destruction, it's easy to feel powerless. But change begins with a single story. Stories build empathy, connecting us to the forest's fate. I've witnessed the beauty and devastation, heard unheard voices. It's my duty to share these stories, to be a messenger for those who can't speak for themselves. Stories transform statistics into realities. We must all become storytellers, amplifying voices from the front lines. Each story plants a seed of awareness, building a collective understanding. A chorus of stories creates powerful change. One of the most powerful lessons of the Amazon is that it is not a distant, separate world. It is intricately connected to our everyday lives. No matter how far away we live, we are linked to the Amazon by the very air we breathe. The forest, often called the lungs of the planet, plays a vital role in producing oxygen and absorbing carbon dioxide, helping to stabilize the climate that we all depend on. The health of the Amazon is directly linked to the health of our global atmosphere. Every breath we take is a shared breath, a quiet communion with the trees and leaves thousands of miles away. The idea that this great lung is being damaged should make us all feel breathless. Our connection is also written on our shopping lists. The global demand for products like beef, soy, palm oil, and certain hardwoods is a primary driver of deforestation. The choices we make as consumers have a direct and tangible impact on the fate of the forest. A hamburger eaten in London could be linked to a patch of cleared rainforest in Brazil. This can be a difficult and uncomfortable truth to face, but it is also an empowering one. It means that we are not just passive spectators, we are active participants, and we have the power to make choices that support conservation. Furthermore, the Amazon is a global library of biodiversity, a treasure trove of potential solutions to our most pressing challenges. The plants in the living pharmacy I witnessed hold the chemical secrets that could lead to new medicines for diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's. The incredible genetic diversity of its species could hold the key to developing more resilient crops. When we destroy the Amazon, we are not just burning down a forest, we are burning the books of a library we have not yet learned to read. We are destroying potential cures, solutions, and scientific knowledge before we have even had a chance to understand it. Understanding these connections is the first step towards responsible global citizenship. The Amazon is not out there. It is in our air, on our plates, and in our medicine cabinets. The challenges it faces are our challenges. The fire that burns in the Amazon casts a shadow that reaches every corner of the globe. Recognizing this shared destiny is crucial. It transforms the fight to save the rainforest from a charitable act for a distant place into an urgent act of self-preservation. We are all connected to the Amazon's fate, and its survival is intrinsically linked to our own. The end of my physical journey marks the beginning of advocacy and action. The Amazon is at a critical tipping point. This is my call to action. Transform awe into a commitment to protect it. The journey continues in our daily choices. Educate, listen to indigenous voices, and understand the forces driving destruction. Support organizations empowering local communities. Be conscious consumers, supporting deforestation-free companies. Use your voice as citizens, demanding strong environmental policies. The Amazon is a cornerstone of our planet's health. It is our sacred duty to protect it for future generations. Thank you for joining this